Now we have another person wishing to talk about modern trends in horticultural training. Something close to all our parts, I think. So I'd like to introduce Robert Davies. Robert's always loved plants, unfortunately so do all we. Collected plants orchids as a child. He went to James Roos Agriculture Park and studied horticulture at the University of Western Sydney. He has worked continuously in the nursery industry and now lives and works in Northern Rivers. Unfortunately, I guess we're up here. Got to come to Tasmania. So please welcome Robert Davies, who is currently working as head horticulture teacher at the Wonderbar Take. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I've got a horrible feeling I'm about to lower the tone. I appreciate very much what Mark and John had to say. It was, I found it very interesting. I'd just like to also take this opportunity just to acknowledge country. The land, this building is sitting on Bundjalung land, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians and pay my respects to past, present and emerging elders. Having said that, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about myself. Again, there we go. As I said, I've always had plants. I've grown up loving plants. As I'm sure we all have. Hopefully we're all into plants. It's nice to think we choose a career in horticulture because we actually like what we do. I certainly have. I began my horticulture career in Sydney working for Avondale Shootstock Nursery as a stock plant nursery hand. I would have loved to be in the shed, but they wouldn't let me. They made me stay outside in the rain. Since then I've grown heaps of different plants, from cacti to roses, succulents, bromeliads. I've spent a lot of time growing syzygiums and lily pillies and, for the Sydney market. I would also like to add that I live on the North Coast because I chose to move from Sydney. It was a conscious decision. I've worked in the industry since I began my career in the industry over 30 years ago, and I'd like to say I've loved almost every minute of it. I do stress the word almost. There are obviously times when it rains and it's less easy. For the last 8 years, I've hopefully been able to pass my love of plants and my love of horticulture on to a new generation of learners and students. I've been lucky enough to be in a position to teach horticulture at Wonderbar Take. Initially as a casual teacher, and since the start of this year, it's taken up the role as a full-time position as the head teacher. Reluctantly, I had to give up my position at Teevan Valley Plants, which is a beautiful little place just outside of Ballina in the hinterlands, where I've worked since 1998 in the nursery as a production manager of a small family-owned business. I'd still be working there today. When Zoe said that she couldn't stand working in an office, I thought of what I was doing yesterday, and I must say a little tear came to my eye and thought I'd really just be like to be back in the nursery again. But it's nice to have the opportunity to pass the knowledge on and to help new learners in their journey. I'd also just like to say that as I'm an advocate for TAFE, but the positions and the opinions that I'm about to express are my own and not TAFE's. It was way too much paperwork to actually get into TAFE's position. So mine, if you have any issues with it, speak to me, don't speak to TAFE. I acknowledge country. And I'd just like to go back to the previous slide and say that these days, when it comes to vocational education, there's plenty of different options out there. It's certainly not a one-size-fits-all approach. I know a lot of people in this room would have done a Cert 3 in horticulture face-to-face, and I think that's a fantastic way of learning your skills as a nursery person. It's not the only option these days. There are other ways of gaining specific skills or other knowledge, and there's other formats in which you can do it. And today we'd like to explore a few of those, as well as looking at what some of the future trends in horticulture are and how we can best achieve them. So, before we can start talk about the future, I'd like to just have a really quick run through of the past. TAFE, the first vocational course in Australia, was taught in 1833 at the Sydney Mechanical School of Arts, and it was actually a course in mechanical drawing. In 1890, they moved to Ultimo TAFE, which they still teach out of today, although it wasn't called Ultimo TAFE back then. That's a picture of the building. the 50s and 60s saw a massive boom in vocational training, both in the need for vocational training after the war and the boom in building required a whole lot of people, so there was a boom in vocational training. And in 1970 they changed the Technical and Further Education Commission was born and we became known as TAFE. In 2024, TAFE is the leading provider of vocational education in Australia with approximately 500,000 annual enrolments. So with that size comes a responsibility. There's definitely advantages to it, but there's definitely a responsibility as well. The core values we like to promote at TAFE and which are on our prospectus are basically we like to put the customer first, so the customer being the trainee or the learner. They're essentially our customers. It's always important for us to remember that we're working for them. We're trying to deliver the best product we possibly can for them. We also strongly value industry collaboration. One of the reasons I'm here today on my day off is to collaborate and talk to people in industry just like yourselves. I think the input that you guys have into what is taught and how it is taught, I can't stress how important that is. And certainly at Wollongbar Division of Horticulture, we value the nursery industry's input as we do any other horticultural input. We think it's super important to have discussions and industry consultations. I was in an industry consultation just the other day with the Institute of Horticulture about prospective subjects that we've got coming up and what units should be in those subjects, what they thought they should and shouldn't be in there. We also do it when it comes to what the content of those subjects are. So we definitely want industry to have a voice. We've also got the open, a few of you are aware of the Open the Shade Cloth, from local nursery industry members are aware of the Open the Shade Cloth program, which the industry runs up here. They're having a visit to Wollongbar TAFE next Friday, so industry's coming to see what we can do. So we like, I think that interaction is crucial. We also obviously value integrity as a core value. We have more internal audits than I would probably like sometimes, but we certainly have lots of checks and balances in play to make sure we are doing the right thing. And we also value excellence in our learners and our teachers, and there is a rigorous program of training within TAFE for the lecturers, for the teachers. They have mandatory training they have to do. They have to keep up their currency and show their currency, because there's no point in having wonderful skills. I know one of our teachers who's sitting with me at the table today finished his Cert 3 in 1981. He was the first one in the first class of horticulture students to go through Wollongbar. As great a teacher as he is, if he learned in 1981 that has done nothing to upend his currency, he's not much use to us as a teacher. As well as things the old ways, sometimes still being the best. I think the crucial word there is sometimes there are things happening, advances. It's important as teachers that we keep abreast of these things. So, I did mention I was going to look at both time. So, one of the options we have these days of running courses, whether it be through TAFE or otherwise, is the advent of short courses. Now, I'll just skip to the non-accredited courses because that's probably the way we're looking at, and say that I was very foolishly asked in a meeting a few months ago to come up with some names of short courses. We were trying to market them. Obviously, we're trying to get people to attend these short courses. These are non-accredited short courses. These are non-ASPA approved. They are basically interest courses. So we try and get people to come because they might see something of interest to them. So I suggested Let's Get Dirty for a sort of course on growing media. I was hoping someone would laugh then, and I do have 6 students in the back of the room, so I will be marking your assessments next week, so I'm about to tell another joke. And so the next one was taking sex out of propagation. Yeah, still nothing. My children didn't laugh at that either, because I had to explain to them that there is asexual propagation out there, or cut-ins, which they didn't understand. I was hoping you would, and fun with hoses as well. So obviously none of those names were taken up, but you can only try. We also run and can run short accredited courses. Now these courses can be blocks of, say, irrigation units that are put together. We sometimes call them a block release. These can be run as 2 or 3 day workshops where people can do a block release in something like propagation. You can growing media, we can cluster units together. These are often useful for industry, and I know in consultation with the local nursery industry there's certainly scope for running some of them. So these short courses are sort of nimble, they're easy to, they can be short, they can be run multiple times a year, and they can be driven by either by market driven, as in there's a market demand for them, or they can be something requested by industry. Obviously, in these days, the digital world is, you can do everything basically digitally. I'm still yet to be convinced that you can do a vocational course digitally, but they are there. You can provide evidence online. You can do everything up from a Cert 2, Cert 3 and a Cert 4 and a diploma digitally, both through TAFE and other providers. They are flexible, it's self-paced. For some people, they suit them absolutely down to the ground. They can continue working. They don't impact on, they can still do a 9 to 5 job or a 5-day-a-week job without having to worry about losing productivity, or, especially these days with the cost of living being so high. So that's definitely an option. The trouble, they definitely represent a whole lot of advantages. There are some challenges, obviously, with online delivery as well. And the challenges being, obviously, the use of the technology. Some people just are not happy to use computers and it doesn't suit what they want to do. And just being motivated and self-motivated enough to go and say, I'm going to allocate a certain number of hours every week to doing homework or doing TAFE work or doing study is difficult. And it certainly doesn't suit everyone. And this is often reflected in completion rates. They tend to have lower completion rates than the other forms of delivery. Yep, that one. A blended delivery option is a brand new style of delivery that has been offered through Hawkesbury TAFE for I think 2 years now. And the blended delivery is a multi-format option. And it was requested by industry, and it basically is they're running a Cert 3 in nursery production out of Hawkesbury TAFE. And what this basically looks like is they have 2 hours a week every week where they have an online tutorial. So they have a lecturer that sits with them on a Teams meeting. They are expected to attend. Like their attendance is part of it. This is often happening at a workplace. So if you've got a trainee doing it, they can sit in the office for 2 hours, do their online training, make them do their online training, hopefully they don't need to be made. They're also going to do workshops and assessments, which I'll come to in a second. They will do work-based assessments, where they are, if you are potting up every day at work, or you've got, like you're doing work-based activities, they can be assessed at work, so you can gain credit for the activities you're doing. They will also run workshops, so an irrigation workshop. It is very hard, so you can do a 2-day irrigation workshop, cover the irrigation units that you need to do, and get ticked off for that. Same for growing media, same for some of the other subjects as well. Sometimes called block release. So using this method, this model, you're getting a blend of online delivery, although you're getting face-to-face tutorials with a teacher. You're getting work-based assessed, so you're getting assessed on what you do at work, and you're still getting the option of coming into TAFE and doing some study. This is something currently only being offered through Hawkesbury. I think they had 250 apprentices and trainees sign up last year. This is something that I'm working very hard towards being able to offer at Wollongbar as well. Not yet, but we're working towards it. This is the trade show. This is the the picture you can see there is the trade show at Alstonville the autumn's trade show must have been. This is Pierce's display here of all their beautiful cacti. As I mentioned before, I may not have mentioned Pierce's was the first job I ever had on the North Coast. Strangely enough, given my love of cacti, they were growing no cacti at the time. They were growing lots of roses and other things, but just to give some context to the photo, still using the same cardboard boxes though. They're doing so the traditional style that probably a lot of you are more familiar with is the face-to-face delivery style, where you sit in a classroom 1 day a week for or 2 days a week, depending on the time frame of your delivery. For me, I put original is still the best with a few question marks next to it to be politically correct, but I still reckon it's the best. The learning experience you get sitting in the classroom is hard to replicate in other ways. There is you get camaraderie. There's a mentorship you can have from a teacher. Hopefully, good teachers are also mentors. I certainly have lifelong relationships with some of my students that are still talking to me after the end of the cert through. So it's nice to keep up these relationships. I think I've got a photo of one of them coming up. I know I do. You also get to maintain friendships, and hopefully the students in the class form friendships and relationships. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago run by Garden City Plastics on new innovations in horticultural technology or horticultural chemicals, I think it was, and I had two people approach me and say, "Have you got Hugh Monk? Is Hugh Monk teaching at your place?" I did my trade certificate with him in 1981. So even the relationship you formed all those years ago, it's still there. So it's great to form these relationships. As much as it sometimes feels like a very big industry, it often also feels like a very small industry. So any contacts and connections you can make, whether it be at TAFE or anywhere else, can be super valuable in your career. As a result of all these things, it's also we have better completion rates. You're much more likely to finish your degree your qualification if you start it with face-to-face delivery. As with anything else, it's not all roses. There are some costs to it. Obviously, it takes time. You're going to lose it. If you're a worker, you're going to lose a day a week of paid income. If you're an employer, you're going to lose your worker for a day a week. So there is, and that is an issue. Obviously, in these times of, I've got some coming economic trends, and one of the important ones is cost of living. I mean, we all know that our mortgages have gone up, interest rates, it's not as easy to make a living as it used to be, and TAFE enrolments sometimes reflect that because people just can't afford time away. So as much as it's good, that everything comes with a cost. Now, before I talk about emerging trends, Josh, who you see here, that was the best photo. I took 4, that's the closest he came to a smile. But Josh Duncan here was one of my students I taught 6 years ago. He was a worker at Alpine. He was one of the better, he's not in the room now so I can say, he's one of the better students I've ever had, except for the 6 students who are sitting at the back of the room. He has now gone on to manage Austinville plants. Josh and I are still in regular contact. He's an advocate for TAFE and a fantastic young man that I expect to see more of. I think he just won the Young Nurseryman of the Year award last year as well for the Nursery Industry Association. So he's a great example of what can go right. But as far as emerging trends in horticulture go, in 2022 there was a trend report written by Greener Spaces. Now, Greener Spaces basically interviewed 1,600 people and had industry consultation. And after coming up with they came up with 4 upcoming trends. Although overall, 60% of the people they interviewed were worried about climate change and the environment. Now, again, these are names I didn't write. So, although I probably would have if I could. So, trend 1 was wet and wild, which basically means they want to encourage bees, insects, and wildlife into the garden. So in order to encourage bees and wildlife into the garden, bees, insects, birds in particular, they want us to have more water features in the gardens, waterfalls, ponds and things to bring birds in, and they're really looking to have more endemic plants and particularly local endemic plants that flower. In this way they're hoping to bring, it was identified that people wanted more of this in their gardens. So plants with colour, plants with flowers, and plants hopefully endemic to the area. Resilient roots. Yeah, I didn't write it. basically, they're looking to have, we want low maintenance gardens. Now, a lot of this reflects what previous speakers have said, that they want maintenance gardens that are low maintenance. They want low inputs. They basically want to have plants that look after themselves, that are supposed to be growing when you plant them, that are not going to suffer, pest and disease issues because you're trying to force them to be somewhere they don't want to be. They're not going to need loss of water because they're happy to be in the environment you plant them in, because that's what they've evolved to be. And also, if you can, there's also, this sort of ties in with the cost of living, but hopefully they're going to be plants that will produce, if possible, produce food. So if there's a benefit as well as the aesthetic benefit, if you can also harvest the food crop off them, then that's something people are looking for. A great example of this on the north coast would be something like finger limes. They're hardy, they're resilient, you pretty much can't kill them. They produce finger limes, which are amazing in gin and tonics, and potentially green curries, and lots of other things, I'm sure, but especially gin and tonics. And so it's a great example of something we could, that obviously the people are already growing, but that is a great example. The third one down is 3D gardens, and this ties exactly in with previous two speakers. They're talking about gardens that are below, beside, overhead. I don't need to reinvent the wheel and tell you guys about the heating and health benefits that's been gone into in detail by the previous two speakers, of having green roofs, green walls, green spaces. It's one of the elected choices. The benefits to heating costs of your house, the benefits to your quality of life, and well-being and it's certainly something that's been identified by people who have been asked about general public environment, as well as Brisbane Council and everyone else. I already wanted this in public environment. This is certainly something that we can now. It's also been shown that if you have a house in Sydney with 8% for more a tree cover and selling for cents a watch than the house, and now they have evidence that industry wants, there's actual financial benefit to it as well. Also, we teach as well as mitigate pest and disease and weed control. I'm sure you guys are all over it, but the green and zone out, weed management, integrated pest management, and as is in the process that I'm sure every nursery does, because it's not just a matter of just going into insects and insects, it's a holistic approach aimed at reducing our use in our gardens and improving the efficiency of the way we treat pests and disease. This is standard practice now. It's certainly something we teach and preach, something we want a better term and take. So we are able to use, incorporate these things into our teaching models and incorporate them into the design of our subjects. So when we think about how they do that, how can we select plants, what plants? Now, again, to spruce take a bit, we are lucky. We are lucky because we are such a large organisation, but we also are dynamic. We have a dynamic environment. We have a scale that allows us to leverage. We have expertise, passion and history, and hopefully using these things we can respond to the changing needs of horticultural vocational education. Now, just on a lighter note, yes. Tia Magna is a previous Six-Pack Award winner through you guys. I believe she went to the same conference as the Six-Pack Award. Yes. Tia is is a student who travelled to TAFE from Tenterfield. Now, I'm not sure if any of you know where Tenterfield is, but it's a 2.5-hour drive from Wallingbar campus. She was half an hour outside of Tenterfield. So she drove 3 hours every Friday to come to TAFE, and then drove 3 hours home again. Did a 7-hour day at TAFE, then drove 3 hours home, 3 hours there. She was never late. She was always on time. She was amazing. She was, however, a woman of few words. She was also quite tall, and she's the one in the middle there. I recently got an email this week, a couple of weeks ago from Tia, and it literally said, "Thought you might like these photos of me at Kew." So, which clearly I did. They're beautiful photos and fantastic to see a student doing a 3-week work experience at Kew. What Tia failed to mention in this email that she sent me that she's also a recipient of the Global Footprints Award. So the award that we were talking about earlier, T is currently overseas in 6 weeks in Europe, and not that I knew until speaking, until the previous discussion, but I fully expect to go to my inbox one day soon and get another email from Tia doing something amazing. So she's a fantastic, she's a fantastic example, as Josh was before, as the young students at the back of the room are also a fantastic example of what the future of horticulture can be. I mean, I think we've already established that there's some amazing young people coming through the industry. I think TAFE can play a small part, and Wally TAFE specifically, from my point of view, can play a small part in producing some amazing new horticulturists, then I'm all for it. So yeah, and Tia is just a fantastic example of it. And just for the, I've tried very hard to make you guys laugh, and I've failed pretty much everything. So I'm not going to stop. But just to complete the trifecta, the very large leaf, because that is a leaf that you can see in the background there. The tallest thing you can see there is the leaf of the Amorphophallus titanum. Is everyone familiar with the Amorphophallus? The Amorphophallus, largest unbranched inflorescence in the world. It's one David Attenborough is always on about. We talk a lot to our students about botanic names, and I'm sure you've had these discussions before about how people struggle with botanic names and they're boring and I hate them and they're dry and they're hard to learn. Well, this is a goodie. So Amorphophallus titanium, does anyone want to have a crack at what that is? Giant, misshaped peanuts. Strangely enough though, the name does not come from the inflorescence. The name actually comes from a protrusion that comes from the underground storage corms that it has. Yeah, thank you, because if that didn't make you laugh, I give up. And that's about me. That's it. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm happy to sit down as well. Oh, good. There you go. Thank you.